Hi there, my name's Sabrina Ben-Salmi, and you're here on Discussions of Exploration with your host, Sabrina Ben-Salmi, as I said. But today I'm joined by a special guest called Arianna Scott, and she is going to be discussing the essence of how to maintain an attitude of gratitude during these challenging times. Bit of a tongue twister for me here. And Arianna, thank you for joining us on this platform. I wonder if you can introduce yourself to the audience, the listeners, please.
Yes, of course. First of all, I'm super excited that I get to share your platform with you. I have watched you and your family for so many years. You've inspired so much of what we do in our home, and it's just like a dream come true for me to be able to actually share this time with you. But my name is Arianna, as you mentioned, and I'm not really big on introductions. I like to be me, but I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm I don't know, I'm just the average girl, average woman, and we share so much in common. I'm passionate about people succeeding in whatever they do, especially when they have the right mindset. So you'll find me a lot encouraging people just to be the best that they can be, because I personally have gone through challenges. And so I'm not one to sit back and just watch people fall, just watch people try to find their way blindly through an area in life. You'll find me as the biggest cheerleader, a person can have. And that's what I love to do. And so in introduction, that's who I am. I am an encourager. I like to be light in dark areas. And I like to be joy, for anybody in any area. If you know me and you've been following me, that is what I love to do. And so I don't make a big introduction. I'm a mom, a wife, a sister, whatever it is that you need. I try to be that person. And so thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here, Arianna. To be honest, very touching. I really echo what you said, because I've been following you for years, and I can definitely agree with you that you are a supporter. You really are. You lift up people. So thank you for being there, being present. I wonder, for the purpose of the listeners, because during the current state, what's going on, I wonder if you can share an aspect of your story from a premise of just encouraging people, because sometimes I find that people come to me and they say, well, it's easy for you because you've got this, or it's easy because of that. Well, actually, we all have a beginning.
Yeah. So for me, I experienced some very challenging, hard, rough patches, in my life early on. Some of those patches were abuse, neglect, just as a child. And so I had to learn how to navigate, through life very young. At a very young age, I was put into adult situations. And so my mind is a little bit different than the average mind, just because I've had lots of practice. And so even like you mentioned, during these times, I say practice because all of those years, the things that I've gone through, the things that I've experienced, both good and bad, have shaped me and put me for this position, for such a time as this. And so all of the years of practice, and my story, for lack of better words, and I know we're going to get into the topic, but my mindset has been shaped and formed for such a time as this, such as this challenging time. And so I've overcome previous challenges, and I'm going to overcome this one as well.
Oh, yes, indeed. I love that. I really love that, because it really rings true for us as a family too. It's that the storm doesn't last always. It shall come to pass. And I love that. And it's absolutely beautiful. And like you said, we're going to get into the topic subject, but why did you choose this? So Arianna actually chose this topic herself. And why was that on the forefront of your mind to actually share with our listeners?
Having an attitude of gratitude, what is the topic that I chose? And I think that it's so easy to focus on the negative. For example, I don't know if you guys have heard, because I know we're kind of distanced apart, but one of the things we say here in the United States is you can't see the tree for the forest. In other words, you're so busy looking at, or you can't see, I said it backwards, you can't see the forest for the tree. So you're so busy looking at a tree that you don't see the bigger picture. And so I think what we've been conditioned to do, especially with media, with social media, with the news, and things that we see on TV, things that we hear on the radio, things that we just talk about amongst ourselves, we tend to be more negative. We tend to focus on the primary problem instead of seeing and understanding the bigger picture. And so that's why I chose this topic, because that's something that I'm very passionate about. You know, all things work together, right? All things, both good and bad, work together, so that in the end, the bigger picture is going to be positive, especially if you make it positive. Like, we can make anything negative, but you can also make anything positive. And so I tend, and I choose, because it is a choice, I choose to lean more on making things positive, period.
Yes, that is beautiful. And I think that really hones into the essence that the choice is really yours. You know, you can make of this situation anything you want. And some people will be going through adverse situations, but still it's for us to claim that, how can I see this as an opportunity for me to birth out of this what the next step is for me? Because we can sit at home and watch TV and go, well, look, this is all happening to us.
Right.
Or we can go, actually, maybe this is an opportunity for us to start sharing, caring, interconnecting, activating. So it really is exactly what Arianna's saying. It's an opportunity for you right now to home in and choose, what is this going to mean to you as a family? But only you can make that choice. I really love that, Arianna. Thank you so much. The other aspect I was going to ask is that, how do you kind of interconnect on a daily basis this mindset of, I guess, you know, if you're faced with a situation, a challenge, or some contrast, how does your mindset help you to repattern or shift your perspective, so to speak?
I love this. I love this because, and I'm really big on saying, and only because you know, my children, my family, they know that I will pull out, you know, a saying or a phrase in order to make it applicable to the situation. And so, like, I was just telling my youngest son the other day, I said, you know, because he was having a challenge and he hadn't prepared for something. So I said, son, if you stay prepared, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Love it.
And so I love it when you talk about mindset, because when you come up on a problem or you come up on a challenge, at that moment is not the time for you to try to scurry and get ready for it. Had you had been prepared for it, preparing even when you weren't having adversity, even when you weren't having a challenge, when you did come up against the challenge, you have a greater chance of succeeding in it. Not that you can't succeed, but having that mindset of success, if that makes sense. So for me, I am really big on daily building your mindset in a positive way. So personally, because I am a Christian, the first thing I do every day is I give thanks, an attitude of gratitude. So the first words, because for me, and we're going to get hopefully not too deep, but for me, words are power. So whatever you give your words to, if you imagine, I always use this illustration, imagine words, every word that you speak as little people running out of your mouth, right? And depending on, because you're the boss, so you are the boss, so you are employing your words. And so because I'm really big on having an attitude of gratitude, the first employees that I send out of my mouth from when I open my eyes are gratitude. So when I open my eyes, and I'm talking before I brush my teeth, when I open my eyes, the first words that I am saying are thank you. And then from there, I am still adding, I'm pouring into myself positivity, things that are going to build me up. I'm not turning on the TV and watching the news. I'm not checking my email. I'm not checking my social media timeline. And it's really hard, you know, with our smartphones, they have those notifications lined up and ready for you. No, I swipe up, get them off of my screen, and I am pouring into myself, whether it's me listening to some positive music or reading something positive. Those are the first things that I do. Why? Because I may not be in a challenging moment at this time. I may not be in adversity at this time, but adversity will come. Every season comes. Rain always comes, right? And so for me, you know, I could go on and on and on, but I'm prepared so that when adversity does come, it's not as I'm not running around worried, you know, like everyone else is doing. And I don't say that in a prideful way. I just say these are practices, these are things that I have put into practice long before COVID-19.
Wow.
Long before.
I love, love, love that. I love that it connects to the fact of what you said to your son. You stay ready. It's not getting ready when it happens, it's staying ready. And listen, I really, really want you to reach inside of yourself and utilize that what Arianna's sharing. Like, is this an opportunity for you to reflect on the life that you're living? Has it been a shock to you, or are you just living life as you was living before it happened? Because the truth is, if you were doing what Arianna's saying, is that I loved when you said you actually swipe up. I love that, because it's like, are you letting the day run you, or are you running the day? Is
correct.
That
and I only say that these are for iPhone users, people. If you have, I don't know what Android is like. I just know
yeah,
iPhone.
it's a different world. But I love that, because you said that, like, before you opened your eyes, there was an agenda. And like what's happening for us is like, in the world there's an agenda, but are you gonna reconnect with that agenda every time you wake up? Or are you going to get up for the Android? I know for the Android it's different, but we have iPhones. So are you going to wake up and swipe it away and do what you've put in place?
Yeah.
First, starting with the thank you. I absolutely love that. That is beautiful. Really beautiful.
It is, and it's intentional. It took me a little while. I'm not going to say that, you know, I woke up and I made this decision and, you know, it just happened. But I think that when you are determined, right, when you are determined to make a change, you know, and I always say, people do what they want to do. People buy into what they want to buy into. People will tell you when they don't want to buy into it, oh, I don't have the money. But the same person in that same next moment that didn't have money will buy into, will literally go into debt, okay? Because they wanted to buy, they wanted this. And so you have to want it bad enough, and you have to put into your mind determination. Like, you know what, I don't want, you know, I'm tired of getting the same results because I'm doing the same thing. So I've got to do something different. And we hear it all the time. But yeah, I got to do something different, you know? And so for me, this practice, it's taken, you know, years. I will say it's taken years, you know, now to the point where it's so rote, or it's such a, sometimes I just do it and I don't even think about it. I don't even realize that I've done it, you know?
I love, love, love the example that you've given, is that when someone's interested and committed, they're two different things. Because one will go, yeah, well, I can't kind of do it. And like you're saying, the other one will go, well, I'm willing to go into debt for this. Because when you want something, like as much as you want to breathe oxygen, you'll make it happen. When it becomes that the primary essence of your pure existence, you will make it happen. So now when we're talking about gratitude, having the attitude of gratitude to preserve you and your family going forward, if you understand the value in it, you will make it happen. You will plant the seed, because like Arianna's saying, the same as me, it never happened overnight. But the truth is, if you don't plant the seed now, listener, how is it going to start to grow? It really is about just planting that and allowing the ripple effects to come from that initial seeding. And what I really love about what you said as well is that we have a choice. I think sometimes as human beings, we put out this verbalization of we're so hopeless, or we can't do these things. Well, actually, take a good look at your life. The truth is, all of the results you're getting is as a result of exactly what you said. It's a habitual action. What have you been planning and practicing every single day to get it? Because nothing just shows up. You know, you be doing something, saying something, being somewhere, connecting with a certain crowd of people to be creating all these things that are going on in your life. Would you like to expand on what your viewpoint is around that?
Yeah, so my viewpoint is, and this actually is the point, it was the tipping point for me, because I had to come to the realization that regardless of what I do, I'm still going to get 24 hours in the day. Nothing is going to change that. So even if I started to do this and I failed at it, okay, that's fine. I'm still going to get another day. I'm still going to get another 24 hours so I can tweak it or not. And I think it just me spending and going through a whole day, literally like on social media, just doing nothing, just unproductive work, nothing that was going to stick with me. And then realizing that I'm still going to get that same amount of time. I'm still going to it's still going to be Monday. It's still going to be Tuesday tomorrow and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so forth and so on. I could either spend that time trying to do something productive and positive and something that's going to last in a more positive way, because the negative things can last too. I just had to make that decision. And I think that part of the fact that I still get the same day, I still get the same amount of time in the day, but it's up to me what I choose to do with it. That was a catalyst that my mindset completely changed. And I decided to take on this attitude of gratitude, or take on the role of being productive, as opposed to not doing anything.
I absolutely love that. It's so beautiful listening to you, because I know that we've been following each other, but actually listening to you articulate yourself, it's hard because I'm trying not to laugh because we are so similar. Like, I'm always saying to my kids, like, are you going to just sit there and then today goes? Because today's a gift. We don't know if tomorrow's coming, okay? And
Correct.
all we have. So I'm very much in that mindset, exactly what you said. Just do one thing. If you achieve one thing today, learn one thing today, I just feel like it's not wasted. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a workaholic. I don't think you have to do things all day long. But my point is that life is so precious. Why do some people waste it aimlessly? Like, for me, I'm just like, I appreciate every aspect of life. If we look out of the window, we can see the saturation of beauty and paradise.
Yes.
And for me, it's like, it's so wasteful to go, oh, hey, okay, I'm just going to sit here today and do nothing. And there's nothing wrong with being present. Don't get me wrong. I love to be very mindful, connective. I do earthing, I journal. So it's not that I have a fear of being quiet. My essence is that if you gave me a gift, and all I do is look at it and just put it down, I feel that there's an essence of disrespect. We've been given this entire life. Why would we take it for granted?
That it's funny that you say that, because over the course of at least the last 6 months, so even more so has my mindset changed in appreciation for purpose. Everything serves a purpose. Everything has a place. And I think one of the turning points, even in that for me, was in January when Kobe Bryant and his daughter passed away. That, for me, there was the thought that came in my mind. And I had sent this message out to several people, and the question was, what would your last night be like? Not even 24 hours. What would your last night be like? Because I'm not a workaholic either, but I'm going to tie it all, together. What would your last night be like, with your family? If you knew, and you were the only person who was privy to this information, if you knew that the next day at 11:47 or at 10:47 a.m., that you were going to perish in a helicopter crash, and you were the only person privy to that information, how would you spend your last evening with your family? How would you spend that? How would you see things differently? How would you see the glass of water differently? How would you see your last meal? Would you spend that time having movie night, with your family, just cuddled up? Those moments that we just let go, that we just don't even think about, with our family. You and I having these conversations, would it have just been a text message? You know what I mean? Like, or would we be face to face speaking? Would I be more grateful for the person who cut me off, at the market, at the grocery store? Would I be more grateful for that person that accidentally stepped on my foot in a rush, in a hurry? Because we get so busy in life. And so for me, purpose of everything, purpose of every single thing, like you said, whether it's the pen, whether it's the paper that I'm writing on, whether it's the ground, you know, that I'm walking on. Like you said, if we misuse or abuse every aspect that God awards us or affords us every day, we have completely missed the mark. Completely missed the mark.
You know, all of your words are literally saturating my being, because this is something that I've echoed to people for many, many years. And what I found is that the response I used to get, you know, things are a bit different, because I guess the more I become an embodiment of who I am, the people around me have shifted. But the people I
Yeah.
used to be around, what I noticed is that they would say, that's too much of a morbid question, Sabrina, you can't live with the essence of you might die. But I said that one of the biggest things that I believe, you know, it's just my own belief, it doesn't mean it's true, but one of my belief systems that I have is that we tend to live like there is no end. And I think that is the very premise why we take so much for granted. We tend to not want to exercise until we fall sick. We tend to not want to eat healthy until things go bad. We tend to not remember that there's death until we lose a loved one. And I think it's in that veil of living in an illusion that's our greatest pain. Because, like, look at now, everyone's run home and, you know, everyone's going to die. And I'm going, well, actually, only God knows the time when you're going to die anyway. And the truth was, before all this happened, who said that you were lasting until Wednesday anyway?
Right. Who said that? Who said that?
Yes.
I don't think your viewpoint is morbid at all. In fact, if it is morbid, we should all be living that way, because we are living to die. Yes. You know, you live to die. That is the cycle of life.
That's the one guarantee in life. Exactly.
Correct. The one guarantee in life is that you will die. And so we all should, if it's a morbid thought, we all should have that thought. And the thought should be then, if I am living to die, then how well have I lived?
I love it.
How well have I lived? It's not enough to say, even now, I was talking to someone, and because I'm really big on, you know, just really taking care of my temple, which is why I reached out to you. It was like, hey, I have can I wear my workout clothes? You know, like, can I, you know, because I just don't really want to have to wear two outfits, you know, just, you know, is it fine? And so, but I was doing this. I had the realization that I am living to die, but I want to live a life well lived. Like, I want to live in a way that I can see my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, their children. And I don't want to be that one that's decrepit and sickly, you know. I don't want to be that person. I want to live life, you know. I don't want to live death. And there's a lot of people that are living death.
Yes.
They are literally like walking caskets, because they have, like you said, taken life for granted. Yeah. And so even now, like, I tell people, well, it's not enough for you to run out and get vitamin C now, you know. It takes at least 6 months to a year for your body to even receive it. Yeah. So again, back to that being prepared, staying ready, you know. So it's a touchy subject, and I can see the viewpoint of others, because nobody really wants to talk about death, but then also nobody really wants to talk about life. At what point are we going to have this conversation?
I love that. I really, and I think, you know, the fact that you've chosen this topic, it really does come from a premise of gratitude. So we're not saying to live in fear. You know, I love that you're saying, you know, live each day like as if it was your last. Why? Because you're going to love a little more. You're going to be a little bit more. You're going to prevent yourself from doing this and like, yeah, how's it going? It's going to be like, I want to see you, because guess what? I want to cherish this moment. I want to be fully present, fully immersive. So we're not saying it to you to take away from, we're saying it to you to add to, so that you can fully connect. So when that day does come, you felt like you got to know that spouse, that child, and so on and so forth. Like, I'm a coach and I meet a lot of clients, and some of the painful things I get to hear, there's so many, but one of the things that stands out is that I lived in the same house as my siblings or a partner or a parent, and I didn't know them.
Yeah. Pouring out, I think that God gives each of us a measure of something, whether it's a measure of grace, a measure of life. When I say measure, it's just simply a time frame or an amount of something. And I like to use the analogy, because I'm a visual person. So you'll see me use a lot of visual examples. But when you have a measuring cup, when we measure something in it, do we measure it in there just so it can stay? We're usually measuring it in there so that we can pour it out into something. And so I think that our lives are a measure of whatever it is that we have to offer, and good things. I know that there are some people out there, and I don't know who needs to hear this or know this, but for so long you may have thought that you were negative, that there was nothing good about you. But in baking a cake, when you're looking through that recipe, there's a measure of everything that by itself is no purpose served. Like, I can't see myself just eating a cupful of flour just by itself, or eating, the raw egg, or the pinch of salt, or even baking soda. Like, it's disgusting, by itself. But we do have a measure of it. And when we pour all of that out that we've been given, when we pour all of that out and it's all mixed together, you'll find the most amazing thing comes out of it. And so I think that that's what we have to take into account. We have a measure of whatever it is that God has given you, good and bad. Yeah. And you may think it's bad, but he saw that it was good. And so, yeah, it's when we pour that out, we don't just keep it to ourselves. We aren't just misers and stingy with what we have, allowing people to know us, allowing people to see us in vulnerable states. I think that it's so funny because this time that we're going through this challenge, we are being forced to be vulnerable. We are being forced to find creative ways, even though we may not even realize it, to pour ourselves, to pour out into others, things that we didn't even know that we could do. We didn't even know was in us. It's coming out. It's being squeezed out of us. And so, I don't want to have that story. I don't want to have the story that I lived in a home with siblings or lived with my spouse, my husband, and he not know me. You find out a lot about a person, when they've passed on. And I just believe that we don't have to have that narrative, that we don't have to have the narrative of you knowing and learning me when my obituary is being read, when you're reading my obituary. I want to be, if that's the case, I want to be a living obituary. I want you to know me right now while I'm alive, so that when the obituary comes, maybe for my obituary, it may be, you already know her, and that's it. Closed book, that's it.
I love that. I love. Oh my gosh, you've just poured out. Listener, I really hope you're taking heed of this and stop it, pause it, rewind, take notes, really listen and embody it for yourself and take from it what you need, because I wholeheartedly side with what you're saying. See, often we go, what's your legacy going to be? What are you going to leave behind? What are you going to leave behind? And to kind of connect it to what you just said, why don't we learn to live the legacy and leave the legacy? Why are we not being a living, breathing embodiment of who we are? And I love that, as simply as you put it, I know, as you know her, because it shouldn't be any different thereafter. It's what you've already seen. Okay.
Yeah. You know me already. Like, everything about me, like, already, even with my children. Like, I don't want to pass something down. I mean, I want to pass it down in the sense of legacy.
Yes.
But we should already be doing it while I'm alive. Like, it shouldn't be, okay, no, it's ours together, and it's passed down because it is ours together, not because I passed on and left it to you and now you got to try to figure it out. No, you're going to already know, okay, this is what my mom wanted, or this is what we do. This is so that it's already a process in place. You're already moving along. There's no stop in the process, if that makes sense.
Absolutely beautiful. And I love what you shared with regards to the recipe. I love that what you said, like, who would eat flour? Who would eat the raw egg? Yeah, I get if you're on special diets, but what I mean is that from the premise of what Arianna shared is that that's not what you would do, but when they come together, it's a beautiful mix. And I love what you said about the so-called bad parts, because we are an encompass of the good and bad, the yin and yang, and all sides of those make us who we are. And I really want the listeners to really home in that this topic is really an opportunity for you to start looking in the mirror, start looking at what are the blind spots that you've not seen that you can utilize this time that we're all going to remember throughout time. And that, what is it going to mean to you? Fast forward 6 months from now, a year from now, what do you want to actually look back and think, okay, what am I going to choose to remember this point in time as? Because if you come from the premise of what Arianna's sharing with you, with the gratitude, with me living each day like it's a gift, me living each day with the essence of appreciation and gratitude, just imagine how you're going to look back on this time. And those two perspectives can be the difference that makes a world of a difference to you and your family.
Yes, yes. I really want to point out one thing too, that gratitude is a two-way street. It's a two-way street. And so like you mentioned, the gift is being given to us every day. A gift is being given, but the gratitude is giving back that gift. So it's a two-way street, not even a two-way street. It is a cycle. It's an ongoing cycle. Give. That's what gratitude is. It's giving. So it's not give and take, right? It's literally giving. And so that's how come, so gratitude and thankfulness, actually people don't understand that those are actually two different things. You can be thankful for something and it's, you gave me this, thank you. But gratitude is the fact that you gave me something, now I'm giving it back, whether it's back to you or to someone else. Gratitude is literally like a circle, it's a cycle, and it doesn't stop. And so if it ever stops, you've got to find where that blockage is coming from. Either you have not had the capacity to receive it, which means the reason why you don't have the capacity to receive it is because you're too full, you haven't given. So I always want to clarify that, having an attitude of gratitude means that you can't be selfish.
No.
It's not just take. Every time you take, you have to give something.
I love that. And I think that the way God created the world, nature is a perfect example for that. The tree doesn't say you've taken an apple yesterday, you need to give it back. But in our lives, that apple bears seeds. And as you dispose of that, it can produce. And I love that because it's the essence of paying it forward. And would you agree that if we did one single act of kindness a day, the world would be a better place? We're just paying it forward. We've not, okay, I did this for you, so you have to give it back to me. But what if you just pay it forward? What if you just shift your demeanor ever so much and go, okay, let me look in the mirror. Let me just fix up those wounds so I don't have all that resentment, the anger that can allow me to give as my one of over. I love that.
Yes. I love how you just said about the inner, our wounds, because I'm also big on inner healing, because we attract things. And so if we don't heal those wounds, imagine, I don't know, a thing of honey, a jar of honey, and the honey is going to attract flies, it's going to attract bees, it's going to attract bugs. And so your wounds are like the honey that attract the negativity. So when you have things happening in your life, life is reciprocal. Whether it's negative or positive, it's reciprocal. And so I'm not saying, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that because you're wounded, like you're just going to have bad things happen to you. But if you see these cycles happening in your life, if you start to see this as just, you know what, I'm always attracting negative people. I'm always attracting negative things are always happening to me. It's time, like you said, to take a look in the mirror and just kind of do a self-check, a heart check. I like to say, instead of hardship, a heartship. Do a heart check, because it could be that you just haven't healed. And so you even need to give those wounds, right? Give those wounds. You're full of wounds. You got to reciprocate. You've got to give it away. And then just remember that, like you were saying about seeds, just remember that that rain only bothers the person who hasn't sown seed. So if you've sown seed, if you've planted some plants, you actually want the rain. You actually need the rain. Wow. And so for that person that feels like, I'm giving, and then you don't want to go through any hardships or hardships, you don't want to go through anything, then I'm just going to put this out there, then maybe don't expect a harvest. Maybe don't, if you don't want the rain, if you don't want to go through hard times, if you don't want to toil with what you've planted, if you don't want to go out there and you just want to just throw the seed out there, that's fine. But, if you don't want to do that, then don't be upset when it's harvest time and you haven't reaped the harvest. So that's also just, it's so much that I can just say and just pour out on that. But I will say this, every morning, my prayer is not for God to give me, but my prayer is, God, who can I serve today? God, give me at least one person that I can serve today, whether it is having conversation, whether it is sending a text message, whether it is posting, something positive on social media, whether it is just hugging my own child, they look at me like, okay, well, what is this for? Whether it's making my husband's, favorite dinner or something that I haven't made in a while, and maybe he mentioned it. Maybe it's smiling at your neighbor across the street. I know we're practicing social distancing, so maybe it's now me actually waving, and I haven't waved or said anything to this particular neighbor. Maybe it's leaving something on their doorstep. Whatever it is, how can I serve you today?
I love that. I love that. I really love that. And you know what I love about this? I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because for the listeners, I think it's so important, especially in the current climate. See, here's the thing, you mentioned about social distancing. Now, when my daughter Yasmin's written a book called The Choice Is Yours. And when she did research, she learned that without physical contact, without connection, without human beings, without us loving something or receiving love from something, we start to die. So I cannot agree more with what you just said, is that although we can't physically come into contact with each other right now, but now more than any other time, we need to stay connected. And I love that, the neighbor that you don't usually say hi to, say hi, wave at them, let it go. Because the truth is, we're being taught different lessons, because we've all got different journeys in this life. But if you're able to be aware, open to receiving the lessons that are going to be taught to you during this very period, it might just be a blessing in disguise. It may come out to be your silver line around that gray cloud, because I love the fact that if we stop doing the one thing that makes us human, that's the time when it's really over. Because when the moment we stop loving, stop caring, stop being of service to each other, that's the moment when we need to be worried about what's going on. As for anything else anyone says, that's not an issue. But the moment we start to disconnect as human beings, we have no chance.
Yes, you're right. In these times, we are literally fighting to live. Yes. Not just fighting against the virus, but like you said, fighting to thrive, fighting to live. I worked in a hospital for years, and one of the things that, even with the babies, when babies are born, started to do what's called skin to skin, and that's because, especially the sickly babies who are in NICU, and they actually have people, when the parents can't be there, they have people that actually volunteer and go around, and they actually do the skin to skin contact, whether it's them putting their hand in that little incubator and just kind of rubbing the baby, because studies have shown that babies thrive, and it's because of how their brains are set up. So God, you're right, he's created us for connection, which is why when he saw Adam was alone, he said it's not good for him to be alone, and so therefore he created Eve. And so I just find that amazing how you pointed that out, how your daughter, that's just me that she wrote that book. But just how even children, like we need each other. And if we cannot have that physical touch contact or whatever it is, then we have to find creative ways, and we have to be determined to make that happen, because it does make a difference. It makes a difference, and we are fighting to live.
Exactly. And I love that, because I think, like, for me, like I said, there's 8 of us at home, mum's come to join us, but you and I, we've got our family. What about people that are alone? I know there's a lot of emphasis around the elderly, and we're aware of that, but I find that not a lot of people been focusing on that. There are a lot of single people in this world, and loneliness is the biggest pandemic for way too long. You know, we live in these communities, but we sort of live in individual boxes and we're not interconnecting. So, you know, they talk about depression being on the rise, anxieties, and all of
Yes.
that is because we're forgetting the most human essence part of us is that connection, saying hi, a smile. For us, it might be something
Yeah.
small and we've got our family, but to someone that lives on their own and doesn't see anyone, a simple hello, leaving
Yeah.
something on the doorstep. I love what you said. I really, really thank you for joining me in this space, because you've inspired so much in me. And you actually have no idea, because you were talking about nature and how it's a cycle. And I love that, because what you don't know is that I'm writing 2 books at the moment, but there's another book that I've started to write, and it kind of stopped and started because I was busy, but now I'm home, I'm going to do it. But you, without knowing, have encouraged me to write it, because it's called the farming effect. So one of the stages is about
Oh,
when we're going through pain. It's so painful, but I use it. I'm like you, I'm a visual person. So I use it to demonstrate the aspect that in life, when the soil's being turned, it's that uncomfortable side. But would you agree that in the farming stages is that if you don't turn the soil, it can't be prepared for the replanting? So
it absolutely cannot.
make sense? So
Yeah.
I'm going to be discussing that in the book. And then when the seeding stage takes place, see, you put it down, you pat the soil over, and everyone goes, oh, you know, nothing's happening. You know,
Yeah.
said it was going to grow. Yeah, another idea. Nothing's happening. But people don't realize that beneath the surface, you're in the dark, and everyone's doubting around you, and you're still in the dark. But you've got to go through such a monumental shift, an eruption beneath the soil. And that's what Arianna's talking about. It's inside of us making the choices. And I
Yeah.
believe that it's with that great monumental shift beneath the soil, in the darkness, during our most painful moments, after going through the turning, the eruption takes, when we just start to penetrate. But at that
Yeah.
time, we're not as strong as the oak tree that's been there for 100 years, but there's a process. There's a
Yes.
process. So this is why I love the title of the topic you've chosen, because I feel that you as a listener can get so much from it, and it can be so adaptable no matter what walk of life you come from, no matter how old you are, how young you are, or how much you deem to be, I'm not sure if this is going to work for me. If
Yeah.
you really listen to the message that Arianna so gracefully put out there for you, please. Do you want to share something? It seems like you got some edging.
Well, because you got my mind going, because there was a season where I was going where I was studying, farming, and reaping and sowing, because it is so huge in our life. And I keep wanting to reiterate how thankfulness is two-way. Like it's give and take. Like, you gave me something, thank you. But gratitude expands. And so when you are grateful, when you're living a life of gratitude, you have to, you'll begin to see things differently. So things that you weren't even concerned with, you start to, because it's not a two-way street. Gratitude is a cycle. And so you were making me think about it, because even in farming, there's a scripture that says that those who toil and who sow seed in tears will reap a harvest in due season, because that plowing and that toiling and turning of the dirt, the dirt, it doesn't come prepared. Contrary to popular belief, even the dirt that you pick up at the gardening stores, they've already pre-done that for you. So it doesn't just come that way where I can just go throw the dirt out there and I can go plant some seed and they'll grow. The only reason those seed are growing in that soil is because it was toiled, because it was prepared. And so I could go on and on, but that's what, as you were talking about it, my mind was just going, because even in that, your harvests can change. There's farmers that actually, depending on the season, but this is because they know the rhythm and the seasons. They know the universe. They know the seasons. They know that in the same field, in the fall, or in the spring rather, they can plant corn. And so in the fall, the corn will grow. But in the winter, after they've gotten that corn harvest, because I don't know like what plants grow best in each season, but you'll see that same field, they have to actually turn over that field. So they've got to get all of the corn stalk roots out, and then they may plant, cabbage or something, for the upcoming seasons. And so I think we get caught up in that we're expecting the same harvest, from before, when it's time for us to now plant something else and toil over something else. And it'll be a cycle that we'll find. But as you were talking, because I love the topic of sowing and reaping, because that is literally what gratitude is. It's sowing, it's reaping, it's sowing, it's reaping, and it's constantly. So sometimes we can't always expect to get that same harvest back. So I gave you $5, so I expect $20 from somewhere. Maybe a $20 check will come in the mail or something. And then I get something else and I've completely discarded this harvest because I was expecting this particular thing, or you know what I mean? Like we were expecting one thing and then it comes in another form. So we completely brush it over. And so that's why you saw my wheels turning, because it's so much that can go into it. Even the oak tree has been there for 100 years, but the oak tree also had to go through a certain thing. So its trunk, it's the tree, the bark, it's harder. But it's harder because it had to resist certain winds and certain storms. So the question is, okay, if you want to be like the oak tree, you got to go through what the oak tree went through. So do you want to go through all of the beating and the winds and all? Do you want to go through that? Because that's the only reason the oak tree is as strong as it is. And it wasn't just one storm over the course of 100 years. It was probably hundreds of storms over the course of that time. And so, you know, when you talk about, so you open up so many cans of worms when you begin to talk about sowing and reaping, when you begin to talk about farming, when you begin to talk about that, because like you said, that seed that you plant that's in the dark, not only was it just, but it didn't just drop it in there, they had to beat it. And even then, when seed sprout, the actual seed dies. It has to be broken. It has to be broken. There's no way that anything can sprout out, that roots can sprout out of a seed that is not broken. And so that's why I was looking the way that I was looking. And listeners,
I saw you stirring.
If you can't see my face, listeners that are listening on the podcast, my wheels were turning. And because I'm very passionate about, you know, what we sow and what we were, even with, I said it in the beginning with our words are seed. We sow seed. Every time we speak, we sow seed. And so I'm very careful with the words that I say. I'm very careful with what I choose to sow from my mouth. I'm very careful of that. And you will, I don't know. I could go on and on about sowing. Everything that we do is a seed. Everything.
Listener, firstly, I want to thank you, Arianna, for meeting with me. And before we go, is it possible to let the listeners know where they can contact you for your products and services?
So I don't necessarily have products and services, but you can always find me on Facebook is the most, I think it's the way that we do right now, especially during these times. And it's Arianna Scott. You can find me on Facebook. And if you need to message me there, that is okay as well. And I thank you for having me. I'm in awe that this moment has finally come. And I know that it's the first of many.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to tell you. Thank you. I really love that you were open to an organic conversation. I love where the conversation led us. And I really feel that there's so much that the listeners can grasp from that for them. Because although it's a conversation between the two of us, there's so much metaphorically that they can be applicable to their lives. And listeners, I really hope that you will listen to it again. Because sometimes we listen the first time and we think we understand. When you listen to it again, you pick up the other bits in between.
Yes.
So Arianna, thank you so much. If you want to leave a final message with the listeners, that's perfectly fine with me. And we can take
it. I definitely will. I pray that this has blessed you. And if it hasn't, or you're not sure, you know, where you are in this moment, in this time, because I know that we are all on different walks, we're on different paths. But at the end of the day, all of us are striving for one thing, and that is to be joyful. That is to not hurt or be in pain. I think everything in life, that's what we do. That's what we strive for. And so if you're at that stage in the path where you are, it's not so favorable for you, remember the attitude of gratitude. And remember that when you do have an attitude of gratitude, your sight changes, what you see changes, and you'll be able to see that even what seems bad will all work out for you in the end. The bad, the good, the ugly, it will all come together in this beautiful, I call it a conglomeration of beauty. And I just want you to know that. I want you to know that wherever you are on the path, it's all going to come together. If you haven't dealt with anything negative, you will. It will always come. But on the flip side, if you're dealing with negative, positive will always come as well. And so just keep that in mind, that at the end of the day, it will all work out for your good.
I can't believe I have to talk after that. I'm just serenaded in those words. Listeners, I really hope that you've enjoyed it as much as the two of us have. And this is our gift to you. Just know that you're not alone, and we're going to continue to share. And I really urge you to go out there and share. Like Arianna said, it's a cycle. We pour into you. Now you go out and pour into someone else. God bless. Take care.
Thank you.